Urgent Dallas Cowboys FANS. Do not miss this. What just happened? You won't believe this one. But before we reveal the big news, make sure to subscribe to the channel because here we bring you daily videos with the latest Dallas Cowboys updates. And to not miss anything, activate the notifications. Alright guys, today we have a story that's stirring up a lot of buzz around the Dallas Cowboys camp. You know, every NFL season brings its own set of surprises, and this one is no different. We're talking about the quarterback position, a spot that's always under the microscope, especially when you're talking about a team with such high expectations as the Cowboys. And this year? Well, it's turning out to be more intriguing than anyone could have predicted. Let's rewind a little. Back in March, the Cowboys made a move that caught some attention, signing veteran quarterback Sam Howell to a $2.5 million guaranteed contract. Now, for those of you who follow NFL signings and roster moves, that figure might seem modest, but it was a clear statement. The Cowboys were looking to add some veteran depth and experience behind Dak Prescott, obviously. But what really caught the eye was what this signing implied about the team's confidence, or lack thereof, in their established backup, Joe Milton. At the time, many fans and analysts believed that the Cowboys were signaling a desire to move on from Milton, or at the very least, to challenge him for that second quarterback spot. Milton, a strong-armed player with a lot of potential, had shown flashes of brilliance but also inconsistency. So the narrative was that this signing was a sort of wake-up call for him, a hint that his spot on the roster was anything but guaranteed. And naturally, the competition was expected to heat up during training camp and the preseason, with both quarterbacks vying for that coveted backup role behind Prescott. But what's been fascinating is how the story has evolved so quickly. Because, as it turns out, Joe Milton has been turning all that off-season doubt into a pretty compelling narrative. His performance in training camp and the preseason has surprised many. It's one of those moments that makes you realize how unpredictable football can be, especially in the months leading up to the regular season. Milton has been commanding the offense more confidently, and his arm strength, decision-making, and poise have all improved markedly. Let's talk about the preseason game that really put him on the radar. Just recently, in a dominant 34-13 victory over Arizona, Milton showcased his growing maturity as a quarterback. He went 9 for 13 passing, amassing 179 yards and throwing for 2 touchdowns. One of those touchdowns was a thing of beauty, a 53-yard fade to Jonathan Mingo, which displayed not just his arm strength but also his touch and timing. That connection was a highlight of the game and got everyone talking. Plus, Milton also added a rushing touchdown, finishing the game with a 151.4 quarterback rating. That's impressive, folks. It's not just about stats, it's about the confidence he's exuding on the field. Now, it's important to acknowledge that Sam Howell has been solid throughout this process. He hasn't been bad at all. In fact, he's been consistent, making the right reads and managing the offense well. But here's the thing, he hasn't been able to dazzle quite like Milton has recently. Milton's performances have looked more commanding, more confident, and that's naturally raising questions about who should be the backup when the season kicks off. Pause here just for a second. If you want the YouTube algorithm to keep recommending the latest Dallas Cowboys news to you, it's super important that you leave a like on this video. Go ahead, it's quick and it makes a big difference. Thank you. Now let us continue with the big reveal. So folks, this brings us to a very interesting dilemma for the Cowboys coaching staff. Do they stick with the veteran, Sam Howell, who has been steady and reliable? Or do they roll the dice with Joe Milton, whose recent performances suggest he might be the better fit as the backup, at least for now? It's a classic NFL roster puzzle, balancing experience, potential, and long-term stability. The Cowboys are in a bit of a tricky spot. They need depth at multiple positions, wide receiver, linebacker, cornerback, and keeping 3 quarterbacks on the 53-man roster is a costly proposition. Every spot counts, especially when you're trying to fill out your team with quality players who can contribute immediately. And if they decide to keep Milton, who's been playing so well, someone else has to go. That could mean cutting a player who might have been expected to make the team, or perhaps even keeping an extra wide receiver or linebacker instead of a third quarterback. What makes this even more interesting is the strategic aspect. The coaching staff, led by head coach Mike McCarthy and offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer, have been careful in their evaluations. Schottenheimer, in particular, has been praising Milton's command of the offense, noting that his arm strength and poise are at a different level than in previous years. He said that Milton's results in these recent games have been very encouraging, which really opens up the debate about who should be the backup. At the same time, Schottenheimer also emphasizes that the competition isn't over. It's a fluid situation. After all, the Cowboys still have a couple of preseason games left, and the team is returning to Frisco soon, where they'll have more opportunities to evaluate these quarterbacks in live game settings. The coaching staff wants to see consistency, decision-making under pressure, and how each player handles the physical and mental demands of NFL-level football. And that brings us to a key point. The NFL preseason is often about small sample sizes, but it's also where narratives are built and broken. Milton's recent performances have certainly turned heads, but Howell still has the experience and familiarity with the offense. It's a tight race, and it's far from decided. The Cowboys are known for their roster flexibility and their ability to adapt. They've had to make tough decisions before, and this one will be no different. Now, when we look at the bigger picture, this QB battle is not just about who gets the backup job. It's about the team's overall strategy. The Cowboys have a lot riding on this season. They believe they have a roster capable of contending for the Super Bowl, especially if Dak Prescott can stay healthy and continue his resurgence. But behind Prescott, the stability and performance of the backup quarterback could be crucial if injury or inconsistency strikes. Remember, last season, the Cowboys faced some injury issues at key positions, and that put a lot of pressure on their depth chart. The decision to keep Milton or Howell could also be influenced by other positional needs. For example, with DeMarvion Overshown and Deron Bland having been injury-prone in recent years, the team might prioritize adding more depth at linebacker and cornerback. That could mean sacrificing the third quarterback spot to ensure they have more reliable options in other areas. And speaking of other positions, let's not forget the wide receiver core. The Cowboys have a talented group, with C.D. Lamb leading the charge, of course, but also promising players like Mingo, Brown, and others fighting for roster spots. The same goes for the linebacker and secondary. Depth at these spots is crucial because the NFL is a league where injuries are almost inevitable, and having reliable backups can be the difference between a deep playoff run and an early exit. Going back to the quarterback situation, it's interesting how the narrative has shifted over just a few weeks. From initial doubts about Milton's future on the team, he's now emerging as a real contender for that backup role. The fact that he's been so impressive in recent games, especially in critical moments like the red zone, shows that he's not just fighting for a roster spot, but also making a case to be the team's insurance policy, someone who can step in and manage the game if Prescott gets injured or needs a breather. Meanwhile, Sam Howell, despite not doing anything wrong, is facing this new challenge. The team has to weigh the value of having a steady, experienced backup versus a potential game-changer who's in the midst of hitting his stride. It's a classic NFL dilemma. Do you go with the known quantity, or do you take a chance on the guy who's shown flashes of brilliance? Head coach Mike McCarthy and offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer have been very diplomatic in their comments. Schottenheimer said, "Joe's put together two really good halves," acknowledging Milton's recent performances, but also pointing out that Howell has done nothing to lose the job. It's a delicate balancing act, and it's clear that the decision is still very much up in the air. The coaching staff appreciates Milton's growth and confidence, but they also recognize Howell's consistency and leadership. As we move forward, the upcoming preseason games will be critical. The Cowboys will want to see these quarterbacks perform under game conditions, making quick decisions, handling pressure, and showcasing their command of the offense. Every snap counts, and coaches will be looking for consistency, poise, and the ability to make plays when it matters most. This quarterback debate isn't just about individual talent. It's about the chemistry, the leadership, and how each player fits into the team's overall game plan. The Cowboys have been known for their disciplined approach, and I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to evaluate both quarterbacks closely before making a final decision. Some fans might wonder, what if they keep both? Well, that's a possibility, but it comes with its own set of challenges. Keeping three quarterbacks on the roster means sacrificing a spot elsewhere. And as I mentioned earlier, the team likely won't want to do that unless they're truly convinced one of these players is the perfect fit. It's about maximizing roster flexibility and ensuring the team has enough firepower and depth to handle the long NFL season. Now, let's also remember the history of the Dallas Cowboys. They've always been a team that values stability and leadership at the quarterback position. From Roger Staubach to Troy Aikman to Tony Romo and now Dak Prescott, the franchise has a storied history of great quarterbacks. The current situation with Howell and Milton adds another chapter to that story, one filled with anticipation and hope. Fans are eager to see who will emerge as the reliable backup and how this competition will ultimately shape the team's fortunes in 2024. And of course, the fans' perspective matters a lot. The excitement around this QB battle is palpable, and social media is buzzing with opinions. Some folks are already calling Milton the future of the franchise's backup, while others believe Howell's experience gives him the edge. Regardless of who ends up on the roster, what's clear is that the Cowboys are in a very intriguing position. They have options, and that's a luxury in the NFL. Looking ahead, the final preseason games will be crucial. The coaching staff will want to see more from both quarterbacks, especially under pressure. They'll be looking at decision-making, accuracy, leadership, and how well each player adapts to game situations. It's a lot to evaluate, but that's what makes the preseason so exciting. Every snap, every drive, every throw could be a defining moment in the roster battles. For the Cowboys faithful, this is the kind of competition that keeps us on the edge of our seats. It's a testament to the team's depth and the coaching staff's commitment to building a competitive roster. And no matter how it turns out, we can be sure that the Cowboys will be ready to compete at the highest level, with a backup quarterback who can step in and keep the team's ambitions alive. So, as we wrap up today's deep dive, remember that this story is still unfolding. The next few weeks will tell us a lot about who will be the Cowboys' QB2, and that decision could have long-term implications for the team's success this season. We'll be watching closely, bringing you all the updates, analysis, and insights as they happen. So stay tuned, Cowboys fans, because this is just the beginning of what promises to be an exciting season. And now, Dallas Cowboys fans, I want to hear from you. What's your take on this quarterback battle? Do you think Milton has what it takes to be the backup, or do you prefer Howell's experience? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your opinion matters so much to us and to the Cowboys. And don't forget, I'll be back soon with more updates, so stay tuned for the latest Dallas Cowboys news. Thanks for joining me today, and as always, go Cowboys.